Welcome to another episode of Wholesome Thinking. The main objective of our conversation is to challenge people's minds and stimulate wholesome thinking by utilizing the gifts that God gave us. This platform is inspired by scriptures, spiritual journeys, perspective, and life. It's important to us that we highlight these conversations to help encourage others on their journey and provide perspective. In Second Peter chapter 3 it says, "Dear friends, this is now my second letter to you. I have written both of them as reminders to stimulate you to wholesome thinking. If you ever want to join us on wholesome thinking, please let us know and we'll be happy to have you. Our main rules on this platform are commitment, creativity, no cursing, prayer, and no judgment. Today I'm here with the whole team on episode 6, and we appreciate everybody for tuning back in. Today we're talking about expectations in different realms as it pertains to our lives, any type of personal things that we have going on currently in our past and in our future. First of all, let me say, what's up, fellas? How y'all doing? I forgot to even mention y'all.
So what's up, fellas?
JG,
Happy New
Spence,
Year.
Rashad, how
Happy to
y'all
be
doing
back
this week?
recording another pod.
Happy New Year, fellas. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to get into this.
Yes, happy new year. It's time for new goals. Very excited for the year. Very excited to be here with y'all as always.
It sounds like we got a great expectation for 2025. I'll let Shy get started with us first. Just talking more about his personal expectations for himself, and just sharing a little bit more about himself. So, Shy, if you could open up with us, just
Yeah,
get started.
absolutely. Of course. So at the beginning, January of 2024, the beginning of the year, I heard one of my coaches mention, writing a letter to yourself and having expectations for yourself. And so at the time, not thinking nothing of it, I said, you know what? I did. I sat down. I said, I don't know what this is about, but I'm gonna write it. And so I wrote it. I put it on my board. It says, don't open until the end of 2024. It sat on my dream board the entire year. And then on New Year's Eve, I was like, you know what? Let's just open it and read it. I was like, I wonder what's in it. I actually completely forgot what was in it. So I was very excited to open it up. And it was cool because when I wrote this, it wasn't a lot of questioning myself, did you do this? It was already expectations that I had for myself that it was going to be done. So the letter was primarily a letter of congratulations, which was really cool to say, like, hey, it was me congratulating my future self on what I was going to do that year and that I did accomplish. And so literally it started off by saying, what's going on, winner? First, I want to say that I'm proud of you for who you've become these past 12 months. Like, it already started off with high expectations. And it wasn't like, hey, I hope you became well. I hope you did what you needed to do. It was literally, I'm proud of you for who you've become. And it ended the same way. The letter ended with a job well done for 2024. And reading the entire letter and seeing what I wrote at the beginning of the year just showed what my expectations were for 2024. And writing the letter again for 2025 to have my expectations for this year is just as exciting, right? But this time with this perspective that I have, I've grown so much. And so it's a whole different type of perspective, a whole different type of level of expectations that I have on myself because of how much I grew in 2024. So just to start off with all of you fellas, just kind of thinking about expectations that you had in 2024 for yourself. Maybe you didn't write a letter, but what do you feel like the expectations you had for yourself in 2024 was accomplished looking back at it now at the beginning of January for 2025?
Sure, I could go ahead and speak on that, man. I appreciate you sharing your letter shot, and just letting us know kind of what your expectations were. In the beginning of 2024, of course, I didn't write a letter. I was doing 75 hard with Spence and our wives, so that was kind of the beginning. So I guess so it was a high expectation because you kind of had to be in a sense perfect to do that 75 hard challenge. Of course, we made some mistakes here and there for sure, but setting out the first 75 days of 2024 truly changed my life in a sense. So I think in the beginning of 2024 is when I kind of started the Black Men's Group. We do that on Wednesdays, as we talked about on previous podcasts. And I had a high expectation because I planned it out in phases. In the beginning, I didn't think that it was working. I was kind of getting discouraged a little bit because I kind of wanted more guys to show up. So I was thinking of different ways that I could get people to come and this, that, and the third. And when it comes to those expectations, man, I think I succeeded in a different way because of my time spent with the Lord back in May and June. And that kind of changed the trajectory of 2024. At first, it was kind of like a roller coaster in a way, and then it just kept elevating, elevating, and elevating. And I really can say that I couldn't really do that without him. Me and Shy was on the last Wednesday call for the new year, and we were just talking about reflecting on it, man. And I would have to say, bro, like, yeah, for sure, exceeded expectations just with the power of God moving in my life, bro. Like, seriously. But I didn't have those type of expectations planned out at all. It just kind of happened. And I like kind of what you said that, like, for me, hearing you talk about it, I have to be a little bit more goal oriented, and staying consistent on those things. And that's why my word for the year is obedient, because I'm just starting to notice every time I have expectations for myself, not that I can't complete the goal, it's what time frame I completed in, and am I going in a consistent way, or I'm just slacking off here and there. 75 hard. After we finished, I tapped out. I was done. I was back to doing the old things I was doing. And I think when I create those high expectations on myself, it's harder for me to achieve those things without being realistic. And I also think like a different perspective is thinking about other people that may not understand what it means to plan and organize goals for yourself, right? Because it may be hard to just get to the next day. And so they're just expecting to just probably just wake up in the morning. And I think that's one thing to hone in on is that for guys like us, sometimes our expectations are about our job, about money, and about our relationships. And it's so weird, like to say that because it's kind of what we're conditioned to do now. And I think it's just difficult, and I think it's a lot of pressure on us when it comes to that. And that's why I love this topic and wanted to talk about it because I think it's so many different avenues that we'll get into tonight talking about this. So yeah, I think that's my answer, Shad. What about y'all, JG and Spence?
I mean, I would say that 2024 for me started out kind of without direction, not really knowing how I wanted to move forward in life. I think it was a lot of me trying to just be in control and figure some things out on my own, which oftentimes led to disappointment. I know towards the back end of 2023, there seemed to be like a pretty uh, significant opportunity that was on the table that fell through. And that was kind of hard to bounce back from mentally. And so that really carried into 2024 in a way that kind of had me just reevaluating some things. And I didn't start out the year with a resolution. I didn't really start out the year with too many goals. I was just trying to process disappointment, a lingering disappointment, and contemplating some life changes. I think the one that I was considering the most was just a career change, but I didn't know where I wanted to look to transition to out of education. So this kind of went on for a while, and I kind of just got caught up in temporary relief, and nothing that was really sustainable for the long term. After a church service in May, everything really shifted. One thing that was pretty consistent from the beginning of 2024 was we were in church pretty much every Sunday. And since then, it's been a lot of growth and reflection and repentance, if I'm being honest, and just trying to pursue a relationship with God every single day, depending on Him instead of my own understanding, because my own understanding always came up short. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know how to make things better. And like I said, I couldn't find anything sustainable until I really prioritized that relationship with God and moving from passive faith to active faith. And I got to say that that was the biggest change for me in 2024. That kind of led to a movement away from self-dependence and more of a reliance on God and His Word, and again building that relationship with Him daily. My word for the year for 2025 is humility, because during these times of reflection and quiet time with God, it often reveals that my pride is at the root of a lot of the things that I struggle with, which also ties into my early part of the year of 2024, just thinking that I could figure it out. I just needed time and just kind of needed to come up with a plan and all of that stuff. And it was really just rooted in thinking that I could find the answers or that I had the answers if I just had time to kind of sit down and think everything through. And that just wasn't true at all. Humility is my word for 2025, and just kind of accepting that I don't have all the answers, I don't know everything, but I can look to the source of truth for all of my needs. That's what my focus is going to be this year.
Man, that's super dope, JG. Listening to hear you talk about that, bro, it sounded like, you know, the beginning of 2024 is like, yo, I ain't really had no expectations for real. Like, I was just living. And I just thought like the career change was going to change everything. And I know, I know you personally, but hearing you say that out loud is like, dang, our lives really changed in a year. It kind of really did for the better of all of our lives and our families. So just hearing you talk about that and just having new expectations this year, your relationship with God is powerful. And I just want to commend you on your journey this past year. I've seen the difference in you, you changing as a father. Number one was one of the main things that I've seen in you, and I just appreciate you, bro. Like just for being able to share this part of your story. But yeah, I had to say congrats just on get through this year. Your whole mind has shifted. I've seen it. I know we've seen it in each other for sure. I just appreciate you being there for me as well throughout the process, along with these other guys as well. But just going from no expectations to now, your whole mind is shifted. It's just amazing to hear, bro. For real. So that's dope.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it, man. Praise God. Praise God.
absolutely. I was gonna echo the same thing that he said. I was ready to tell you the same thing because I think it's and I'm glad that you said it, and I appreciate you so much that you shared that, right? Because I believe a lot of times when people are doing something and speaking about stuff like this, right? When people listen, they think everything is like golden or everything is like perfect or everything is always positive with what they're talking about, which is why they feel like that's why they're talking about it. But what you did was people needed to hear that story. People needed to hear that, and because there's people who think or felt or had the same scenario as you at the beginning of the year, and now they have someone they can relate to see that what happens when you grow and change and how your expectations change over the year, even though it didn't start off with the way that probably everybody thought maybe we were going to start off with. So I appreciate you for sharing that because that's going to help a lot of people right there.
Now, first off, Shad, I appreciate you sharing that letter. Kind of made me reflect on 2024 as you was reading it and talking about it. And I think I'm some in similar boats with JG and Rail. I didn't really set a lot of goals at the beginning of the year where I wanted to do this, this, and this by the end of the year. But it was more so just as I think about it, just challenging myself. As Rail mentioned, me and him did the 75 hard. I noticed mid 2023, like I've always been in shape, but it wasn't how it used to be. Like I wasn't lifting as much as I could. When I would run, it wasn't as fast as I would have liked or how I used to be. And that's getting older, but I knew I wasn't in good physical condition. And so one of the things that me and Rail did was challenge ourselves physically and mentally during 75 hard. And really, as I reflect on the whole year, challenge was really the key word. As I was preparing for marriage, I challenged myself to be a better fiance, prepare to be a better husband. And I just wanted to challenge myself to step up in the areas, you see these important milestones that were coming up, specifically marriage. And I think that kind of came from how I was raised. My parents, they really set a high standard. As I said on the previous podcast, that there were times where I wouldn't be able to do sports or play games because my grades weren't good. And instilling that, challenging me to do the best that I can to reach for the stars, kind of instilled that into me as a adult as I looked for different ways to challenge myself. And then going into 25, I'm looking at another challenge. Me and my wife have signed up for this competition to kind of challenge ourselves physically, more so mentally, and just say, oh, we got out there and we did it. We achieved the goal that we set out to do. We challenged ourselves. This is something totally out of our wheelhouse and just going in there and bench pressing, weight squatting. We're actually doing something that's physically and mentally challenging. And I think I wouldn't say that would be my word for 2025, but if I had to give it a word for 2025, I would say progress. Progress would be my word for 2025. And it doesn't have to be leaps and bounds, major progress, but just seeing progress in the areas that I'm currently working on for myself.
I think it's cool that you say that for the progress, right? And one of the things that all three of you mentioned was a word of the year for 2025. And I think that's a great thing for people to have. I know a lot of people set New Year's resolutions for what they're expecting to happen in 2025. And I think we've all heard of like the I quit day. That's like the second Friday of January. But I feel like when people have New Year's resolutions, they're already thinking of this huge goal to accomplish instead of who they're actually going to become or who they expect themselves to become, which is why I also do a word of the year. And I've been doing a word of the year for about 3 years. And I even wrote that in the letter. And what was cool is the letter, this was one of the only parts where I kind of questioned, like, what did I do? And I said in the letter, I said, I will end and ask you, did you hold up your word of the year, grace? Not just for you, but also for others. Because that was my word of the year. And this was a reminder when I got to the end of the year to say, did I live my life with grace? Did I have grace for myself? Did I have grace for others? And for this year, my word of the year is release. And for me, with release, a lot of the times I feel like I have a lot of control or want to have a lot of control on things. And I realize that I'm limiting how much I can grow and learn from others by always trying to have control and how much more stress that I may put on myself. So, I mean, it kind of lines up with how grace was, giving myself grace and realizing that I don't have to have control of every single thing, right? Every single year, my word have built upon each other. And all of my goals have kind of, in a sense, aligned with my word of the year. So I always encourage people to have a word of the year because it helps you figure out what your identity is going to be, figure out what your expectations are going to be, instead of having a bunch of resolutions. Because a lot of the times, I think I've said it before, like motivation sometimes really is where those resolutions come from. You're motivated at the end of the year. You maybe go to like a New Year's goal setting party or something, and you're excited and you set a lot of these goals, but you don't really have an identity around those goals. You set it because you're motivated and excited in the moment. But what's going to be the identity when you're not excited? Are you going to continue to expect that? And so I think having the word of the year to kind of set in, like, no matter what happens, whether it's big or little, I'm going to get better at whatever that word of the year was. So that was something that really stuck out when y'all were mentioning words of the year. But I think it's cool seeing the different levels of all of us sharing on what expectations mean for the year and or what it meant for last year for 2024, but also kind of what we're looking at for 2025. And it's a great different it's perspective on that. So I think that's a great way for us to always reflect on ourselves is remember the expectations that we have, but then it gives us opportunities, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, to kind of reflect on those expectations and make sure that we're always staying in alignment for those. And so I do know when it comes to expectations too, I know there's always a different level of expectations, right? Because I know before there's the good expectations, which we just shared about, but there's also like the bad expectations. And I know for me, just speaking on example, I remember younger Rashad, page one Rashad. And I used to have so high expectations. If you kind of think back to when we talked on the last episode, we talked about with me, I wanted to prove myself at everything that I was doing. And so I had such high expectations on myself that I would limit myself because I never celebrated and learned from the victories that I was having. I felt like sometimes we can have too much expectations on what we're doing, and we either crash or burn, or we actually never learn and celebrate from those wins that we have because we were expecting more from it. Maybe you like let's school. Maybe you got a B plus on a grade. This B plus suck, but it was the highest in the class. It should have been an A because you were expecting higher in a negative way in a sense, right? I mean, it's good to expect to get the A, but sometimes we hurt ourselves and limit ourselves because we never really celebrate those small wins either. So, I mean, have there been times for y'all where too much expectations, kind of like hurt y'all more than helped y'all?
Man, hey, bro, it's so crazy you transition into this because I was just thinking about what Spencer was talking about, and you hit the nail on the head. So when you talking about goals being aligned, and then you get into like this breaking point almost that I can't really get past this. I'm not making no progress at all on my goals. What's up? And not being able to celebrate the small wins. So two examples. The first example I got to use is starting with my parents, bro. Like they just did an amazing job of telling me to always strive for greatness, making sure I got goals every year before school, before each sport started, what type of things you want for yourself. You can achieve them, just encouraging me and just giving me all the affirmations. On the flip side of it, it gave me this mindset that I always gotta do the next thing. And sometimes I would skip steps unintentionally just because I just want to keep going and achieving all the goals. And as the only child already, bro, it's so much pressure just placed on me. I didn't realize that probably till college, to where we talked about when I was like about to flunk out of school. And I realized that year I really wasn't setting the goals that I needed to, just being out by myself. And I didn't have those reminders coming back home, being like, "All right, bro, what's your goals? Like, what's going on?" Or holding me accountable. And I think there's one perspective that I have now is like, I always knew what it was like to achieve goals my whole life, but I never knew what it was like to not progress when you have goals. So what is the happy medium? Like, what's supposed to be happening? What am I actually supposed to be feeling if I can't accomplish something? Because I really don't feel like a failure, so to speak, because maybe the goal was something small that I could brush off or try to get by and I just can recreate it. It's not like a one try type of thing, kind of like high school and middle school and elementary school is. You either pass or you don't pass. When you get into real life, you really don't fail, bro. And every day is going to be something different. Every year is going to be something different that you're going to have to deal with. And I think that was tough for me. And I think I was super hard on myself because of that, because I always thought that I was so goal oriented with my life, man. By the time I look back, I was like, bro, I've accomplished so much. I haven't even had the chance to actually just live and be grateful for everything that I've either accomplished or the small wins that I have. So I didn't have the grace that I have with myself now, being able to just take one day and be present in the moment. Anybody that know me knows that you tell me what you want to do. All right, we could do it tomorrow. And you like, hold up, bro. What you got going on? And I'm like, bro, this is what I'm on. Like, my parents had me on this at 6, bro. Like, we going up the road and coming back in 4 hours. I'm talking about Philadelphia, like it was nothing. So you telling me that you want to do something, I'm letting you know that it's possible. And so that really comes from them. There's no impossible for the Yerby side of the family, bro. Like, or the champ side, like. And that's what I love about both of my families, because they just instilled that value in me so much. But it's also a blessing and a curse, because of the flip side. When I'm not making progress, I could be very depressed in that state, because it's like, all right, what am I doing? And these past like probably 2 years of my life, I could definitely see myself in that state, and that's why I was indulging things that I shouldn't have been indulging in. But I remember my second example. Sorry for talking so long. Was with my boy DT, bro. We chopping it up. I'm not gonna go into the details of the conversation, blurting out his business, but pretty much he was going through a tough time or whatever, and he he got this successful situation going on, and I told him, "Hey, bro, this is a great thing. You, bro, I'm congrats. Like, I'm so proud of you, bro. You're the first in your family to do this. This is amazing." Da da da. He's like, "Bro, I don't feel it, bro." And he kind of started breaking down. This is when I started realizing I was hard on myself. I'm like, "Hey, man, we don't gotta be as hard on ourselves. America wants us to be hard on ourselves, bro. Like, we really have grinded to get where we are in life at this point in time, and we got to celebrate ourselves sometimes too. Not in a negative way, just being able to say, man, I made it to this point in my life. This is amazing. For real, just being able to reflect, like we were just talking about, reflecting on those good times, and being able to say that I accomplished these goals. It wasn't something small either. Like, I did this with a lot of hard work. And I think sometimes we're so conditioned to grind and work that we don't even know how to celebrate. So therefore, I celebrate look sitting on the couch watching TV, sitting on the deck, sitting on the porch, whatever, doing whatever, just relaxing. But it's like, nah, it's other things that we should be reflecting on that we don't take the time to do, because we don't even know what a win is anymore, because we're just so used to doing it. And so we're so hard on ourselves, man. So, Shad, I'm so glad you brought that up, bro, because I had a lot of information to get out at the Spence. So I appreciate you.
Real, you touched on it, and I love Shad touched on it too. It was his word of the year for 2024, grace. That's the key right there, because we set these high expectations and all these goals for ourselves, but when we make a little bit of progress, we don't take time to celebrate the small wins. And then sometimes we can't reach our expectations or our goals because it's something we can't control, which is why I love Rashad's word for 2025, release. You can't control everything. Sometimes you have to release things and just let it happen. You can't have your hand in every pot and trying to control everything, trying to drive the wheel. That heeds you from reaching your sometimes heeds you from reaching your expectations. So I love that Shad and Real both touched on that.
No, that's a fact. Like, I mean, I think it's always good to have a healthy balance between achievement and then like additional expectations, because I know people like to say sky's the limit. Like, we are limited as humans. Like, to be conscious of that and to kind of again just find a balance to, it's great to achieve things, and there's a fine line between ambition and greed. And I think that's something that, I've definitely experienced, where you get so ambitious you kind of lose yourself a little bit and you don't celebrate some of the things that you accomplished. That if you step back and removed yourself from the situation for just a minute, you would understand a little bit better, like, man, not everybody's doing this. And I think that was something that was, for me, not the hard way, but just had to kind of learn through experience. Like, maybe I need to pump the brakes a little bit on some of my ambition and what does that mean, because it was kind of turning into selfishness for me. I think that, again, the line was so blurred there because I had experienced a lot of success in achieving a lot of the goals that I set for myself. And then you kind of reflect on it as like, well, did I set the bar too low? You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like it can be this internal struggle where you want to celebrate your wins, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to stay in the same place. I don't want to celebrate this too much because, I did achieve this and maybe there's more that I can achieve as well. And so you don't want to kind of get into a rat race type of situation where nothing's ever enough. You're just always constantly chasing forever. You just burn yourself out that way for sure. And I'm seeing that now, taking a step back from coaching. It was like, wow, I didn't even know. Like, I was telling my wife over the break, something is just feeling off. Like, I don't even know what it is, but I just feel off. And she was like, this is the first time in over a decade that you haven't had to go to a practice or a game or go somewhere for a tournament. You just get to like be here and actually enjoy the holidays with us and enjoy your break with your family. And I'm like, oh wow, like, you're right. I would usually, and this was like at 10 o'clock in the morning, fellas. And she was like, yeah, you would probably either be in a gym or on your way to a gym at this point of the day. And we wouldn't see you again until like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, because it's just, the process was just get there early, get set up, stay late, make sure everybody has what they need. If somebody wanted to get some extra work in, got to carve out a little bit of time for self care in there as well. Like, I got my workout in, but it was just like before I knew it, I had been gone for like 6 hours of the day. And I'm coming home and the kids are winding down, like, and I'm like, man, we didn't even get to like kick it. Now, like, we was just outside today in the snow, like, and for real, I wasn't trying to go out there and be all cold, but like once I got out there, it was just like, man, this is awesome. Like, just like, this is the stuff that, again, I didn't get to do for the better part of more than a decade. Well, not that I had kids the whole time, but like definitely the last 6, 7 years, this was not something that I was able to enjoy like with the kids and with the family. So yeah, there's something to be said for kind of just taking a step back and like maybe hitting pause on the ambition a little bit, because you don't want to run yourself into the ground. And certainly now that I'm in a different space mentally, and have kind of stepped back from a few certain obligations, like, I can feel that difference. So it'd be tough to go back if that ever presents itself. But man, yeah, like, it's definitely been a blessing to kind of have the time to relax and just enjoy people's company, man.
Nah, that's real, bro. That ambition can just get in your way. I was really like that for a time, for sure. And y'all know me. Like, if you tell me to do something, I'm gonna do it. So, JG, you just saying all of that. I can't even remember. It was one statement you said that stood out. You was like, ambition or greed, and I'm like, wow, like, it was both. It could be both. It don't have to be one or the other, but like, you got to decide when it turns into greed, because you've been grinding and getting to the money for 12 years, 5 years, 4 years, 30 years, and you ain't spend no time with your family. Like, all right, what's up? What you gonna choose? The tree of life or something else? So it's just a lot loaded into that statement that you said. I appreciate you sharing that. But what you think about Shad?
How I'm thinking is what I'm thinking about actually is kind of what you said. And I know a lot of the times people will mask the workaholic, I guess, mindset, or I can't be at home. I gotta be here 18 hours a day doing what I gotta do because I gotta provide. No, that's not how you provide. Go listen to episode one to learn how to provide. That's how you provide. First, get out of this bad situation you're in first, so you don't have to work 18 hours a day and not spend time with the people that need you. Like that's not working constantly. Now, I will say I love people who have ambition. I'd rather you have ambition than not have ambition. I'd rather have ignorance on fire than knowledge on ice at any time, right? So I'd rather have someone that is going to be excited, doing what they can. But I do understand that we have to make sure that there's people that come first. It's God, it's family, it's business and work. You can't get that order mixed up. Once you get that order mixed up, your priorities change, your expectations change in the wrong way. Now you're justifying why, yeah, it's fine that I'm not with my family the 24 hours every single day, 7 days a week. You start justifying this like, hey, as long as they're good, they have money. No, there's a different part that they need from you too. And that goes for men and women because women also do the same thing. They work a lot of hours and put it in the same way that I have to do this because I have to provide. But there's other ways to provide that people would need, and you miss out on that because of your ambition of what you're trying to do to provide. So while JJ was sharing that, I was just thinking, I've heard too many times where I tell people you're overworking yourself. Like get yourself some rest, but also go spend time with the people you love. And they tell me, nah, I am providing because I got to get all this money for them. Nah, Jake, work on getting yourself out of a situation where working overtime every single day isn't the answer to fix finances or whatever you think why you have to work 18 plus hours. Fix that first. Figure out how to fix that, and then you'll realize that you don't have to give all your time away. Your time is the most valuable thing that you have. But if you expect that I'm going to work this way for the rest of my life to make sure I provide, you're going to do that, right? You don't get what you want, you get what you expect. And if you're expecting to make sure that you have to work so much to get what you have to get done, you're always going to do that because that you're going to get what you expect. So I hear it all too much, man. And I just wish people would realize, like, one, if you do the right things, make the right choices. To one, in this situation for finances, just get out of debt now. Working all this overtime won't even be necessary because you have enough. You would have abundance because you're not paying off all this extra money. And then now you can start giving your time back to yourself so you can spend it with the people who want it. Figure out what they want. Like what you're saying is what you want can be a selfish answer because you think you know what they want. But the kids want daddy to be home with them. They don't want daddy at work 18 hours a day. But you have to realize that it's not just about you, it's about them too. You think you're doing the right thing, but there's so much more. So my bad for the tangent, fellas.
You
I'm gonna
good,
let
bro?
y'all go
You
ahead.
good? Because you and I'm gonna let Spence go. You just switched the conversation to something that I love, like in this conversation about expectations. Like we get so caught up in the expectations that we give in ourselves, right? But if you have a wife and you have kids, they have the expectations of you, and it does not involve money. A lot of the times, it does not involve your job. It involves time, love, and your presence, even if you're not doing anything. And that is even with friends too. Like sometimes they just want to be around you, and they just have this expectation of you. Now, it gets to a point where you got to have a balance for sure, but one can't outweigh the other on either hand. And if you choose money over your family, then what are you really chasing? Like what are you really thinking about? What type of success are you really telling yourself that you need in order to be fulfilled? The love that you might be missing and the fulfillment might be coming from home, from your spouse, from your mom, from your dad, from your kids. And we just get so caught up in this time machine of work all the time when we don't even realize that other people in our family and our friends have expectations of us. So regardless of whatever goals you may have, expectations may not change of us, bro, or you. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I wanted to echo off
No,
what
you
Shah
good, man.
said.
Shout over
Go
there
ahead,
dropping
Spence.
gems.
Sorry about that,
Ignorance
bro.
on fire, knowledge on ice, man. I had to write that one down. While y'all were wrapping up, y'all were talking, had this different perspective because we're talking from this perspective. We all have expectations of sales. We all have this ambition and we all have these goals that we have, but there could be somebody listening. There's people in the world that don't have these same expectations for themselves. They don't have this same drive, this same ambition. We all say we got it from our families, our parents, how we were raised, this foundation that we were built, but some people don't have that. So just kind of switching perspectives, give a word of encouragement to somebody that may be listening that don't have these same expectations for themselves. They don't expect themselves to be great. They don't expect themselves to be picked for a job or hired for a job in those situations. Kind of speak to that to people that may be listening don't have that same ambition and expectations for themselves.
I got so much. I'm gonna let somebody else go first because
Well,
that's
bro,
I
so
love that time. Go ahead, JG.
what I wanted to kind of touch on before we get too far away, because we're saying a lot right now. Like we're getting into a lot of different things. Like this conversation is just branching into different areas that like they're all really important. So I kind of wanted to speak to a couple things. Shad, you mentioned that women kind of they put in the work too. They grind and put in hours too. Like I got to shout out my wife because the only reason I was able to coach for so long was because she was willing to adjust her um, work situation. And then, especially when we had kids, like she was willing to, for so many years, take on that additional burden of like just taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and working her job. Like she was supposed to go part time. She never went part time, bro. Like she never did. And Isaiah is 7 years old. She has been for 7 years working pretty much full time, raising the kids, especially during the times when they were not in school or any type of daycare situation, and cooking and taking care of the house and all of that, and making sure everybody's needs were met. And so I just got to shout her out because I immediately thought of that, Shah, when you brought it up. Like there were nights when I would come home and she would be cleaning the kitchen and there would be a hot plate for me coming in late from a late practice, and we would sit and talk for a little bit, and then she would work. She would just get back to work. Like I'm talking, this is like after 8 o'clock, and sometimes she would work super late into the night, and she would wake up and do it all again. And so, basketball season that's running November through March, February usually, and so that was that was a grind. That was a grind for both of us, and I'm thankful that we made it through that period, and I'm thankful for the grace that she showed me to allow me to do something that I really enjoy doing, um, because I know for a fact it wasn't the most enjoyable thing for her all the time. She liked seeing me happy and liked to see me kind of be able to chase my dreams. Um, but there was a lot of sacrifice on her part involved, and so I love her for that, and I just had to shout that out on the pod. But leading to other people's expectations. So we talked a lot about, and we kind of briefly touched on others' expectations of us, but to keep with the same conversation of extending yourself or overextending yourself in certain situations, and that becomes the expectation of others. They don't see it as like this person is really going out of their way to make sure that I'm comfortable, that I'm happy, and that I don't really have to stress myself that much. And that's a tough thing to reconcile, honestly, where you see someone or you yourself are in a situation where you go above and beyond for loved ones, friends, family, whatever it is, and you are way outside of your comfort zone. You're really sacrificing for that person, and there's really no acknowledgement nor reciprocation of that. And it becomes, and because of who you are as a person, if you do something, if you do extend yourself for the benefit of others, that's a character thing, right? That's just something that's in you that you will willingly do for anyone, whether they acknowledge it or not, right? And so, and let me just say, I'm not talking about me here because, boy, like I started this out talking about my pride. So I'm not bigging myself up. Please don't get it twisted. If I'm extending myself for you and there's no acknowledgement, that's probably going to stop pretty quickly. Like it ain't going to go on for too much longer. And I'm sorry. This is who I am. I ain't going to cap for y'all. Like, I'm overextending myself with no reciprocation or no acknowledgement, yeah, that's going to end pretty quick. So, but to see that in other situations where it almost becomes an expectation, like this is just what you do, and it's like, no, 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 this is something that I'm doing because I love you, or this is something because I care about you. Like this isn't something that's supposed to be a regular thing, right? And by the way, that's not a selfish thought to have. That's not a selfish thought to have. I actually believe it's selfish for someone to expect for you to do all of these things over and over and over again, um, to your detriment. Like I always say, like your family and loved ones and those close to you, kind of, they know your situation, or they should know your situation. So it is a bit unreasonable to ask certain things of them sometimes, because I think we should all be aware of what a reasonable expectation is. And so for someone to just think that you're supposed to go above and beyond every single time you're together, or every single time that y'all are involved in a certain circumstance or situation, without them doing the same, is selfish. And again, it's just unreasonable. Like we got to have a little bit of grace towards the person who is going out of their way to show you love and to serve. We got to have a little bit of appreciation for that, rather than expecting that be the response every single time. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, if someone is gracious enough to serve you in a way that is above and beyond, and that nobody usually takes the time to do for you, like, show them a little bit of appreciation and reciprocate that when you have an opportunity to take some of the burden off of their shoulders and to help them in certain areas where you can see that they need it. Let's be quick to get to that. Or let's be quick to serve that person in return that does so much for us.
JG, I appreciate you saying that, number one. But number two, I think that ties in directly to what Spence was talking about as well. Because there's a level of awareness that you got to have to do those things, to reciprocate. And I fall victim to exactly what you're just talking about. But to Spence's point, some people don't have the foundation to understand that, right? So they don't have goals, they don't have expectations for themselves and their life, because they just like, I'm just trying to get to tomorrow. So whatever comes with tomorrow is just a blessing. So sometimes when we're blessing somebody, we brought something out of them that they didn't even know. And so we have projected some of our energy on them in a way that's so helpful to them. They see it now as a necessity and a need for them to survive. Now I got one day now, but now I got 3 extra days now. I could look forward to at least 3 days, because now this person has decided to help me in a way that I don't know if they're overextending, and I don't know if I'm taking advantage. But I'm going to use this help for as long as I can, because what do they see in me that I don't see in myself? And I think that's so hard. So to Spencer's point, and I love that you brought that up, Spence, because that's what my mind is all the time. It's like, my parents did this for me, but like, man, I got some people that I know that don't have that in their life. So like, what are they thinking about every year, day to day, every week? What are they shooting for? What are they living for, right? And really, they living to live, and not selfishly. They're just trying to get by, get to the next day, because they don't have anybody to help them. And so I think for anybody like us, or just anybody willing to serve and help others, we unintentionally overextend because we know how much they need us, right? The only people that see the change in us would be our immediate family, that have an expectation of us, right? This new expectation that this person that we're helping has, oh, this is who they are. I need this person. It's like, nah, you saw me for a short stint of my life, and I was able and blessed to help you at this time in my life. But when it start impacting God, family, the business, and then you, hey, look, what you say, Shad, if it's not in that order, I gotta prioritize my stuff. Now it's my fault. It's my fault. And I think I get consumed on the reason why it's not reciprocated. But it could be, to Spencer's point, the lack of foundation as it relates to expectations, and having the level of open mindedness to understand that even though you're coming into my life to help me, I'm going to reciprocate it. That may not be everybody's way of living and their perspective on it. And that's so difficult to understand, because you do have people that have taken advantage of the way that you have helped them. So therefore, if we get taken advantage of, we like, all right, well, this is a one-way thing, then it's happening with everybody. But that's not necessarily true. Some people really just don't have the foundation of expectations. Like, help me understand what y'all minds are. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but it's just like Spence point and then Jerron bringing it up. It's too aligned. It's too aligned to me.
For me, I think it's part. I think it's situational first, because I think there's people who have trauma that happened in their life that made them lose expectations that they've had for themselves and for life. And I think helping someone like that compared to helping somebody who's just taking advantage of you because they know the standards that you have are kind of different, and their expectations are, they have less expectations for different reasons. I think for that first group, they have to find the healing in their trauma that they have. And getting the word is the very first way to do that, and learning how to heal from that so you can start having better expectations for yourself. Because you read the Bible is going to tell you have great expectations for yourself. And so when you start healing from that hurt and from that trauma, things start to change. Your perspective starts to change. And that's where we come along too. That's where people who have high expectations for themselves or ambitious for themselves can go out and help and show them what that looks like. We kind of think about the support episode we talked about. Sometimes they just don't know how to get support. And sometimes they don't just know how to believe in themselves to have the expectations that they need. But we can help them by us believing in them too. But first, those people have to heal from their hurt. For the other group, the group that just want to take advantage of people, opportunists maybe, for what we can call them, I think the opportunists, we just gotta pray for them, because in those situations, we're still gonna serve. We're gonna be a fountain, but they're gonna be. I'm not gonna call them a drain. They're gonna have draining moments where they expect so much of us because they know they can try to take advantage of us. They can use that as an opportunity, and sometimes there's not much we can do to actually help them other than pray for them, because they don't. You gotta make sure they're even in a situation where they even want to receive the help or the ambition, right? Because if they're getting everything handed to them, then why have expectations for yourself? Why have ambition for yourself if people are going to do everything for you? But because it keeps happening, they're going to keep doing it. And in my situation, if that happens to me, so I was thinking about like when you said, Jerome, sometimes you're doing something, people just expect you to always do that. And a lot of the times, we don't make the situations better because we see that and we maybe get upset about it, and then we just like, nah, this is just done, instead of having a conversation. So I know when that happens to me, I say, hey, why did you think I was going to continue to do this? And we have a conversation. And then we reset expectations. And I think sometimes that's kind of what's needed for those people to understand that, oh, actually, this is not how it's always going to go. I can't always just take advantage of this. I have to learn this myself too, or I have to start applying this myself. I have to always stop being a drain and be a fountain myself. But sometimes we're too quick to like, nah, you keep doing that, you keep taking advantage of me, like, and then we spaz out, we crash out or whatever, and nothing's ever fixed. And we play a part in that too, because what's our standard? Like JG said, like that sticks with me every single day. Like, what is our standard? Because when those happen, those can be teaching moments for us to help them learn how to have a different ambition or different expectations and stop having those draining moments, because they're not drains, they're fountains too. But if everybody keeps being a fountain for them and they just keep draining everything, they have enough water. They don't have to give away any water because they just keep getting it. I mean, I don't know about you. If, let's just use Buddy. I'd rather keep having money keep coming in all the single time instead of always like giving it away. But I want to serve. I want to be a fountain, right? I want to give more than I want to receive. But if you don't think that way and no one can show you those examples and do that, you're just thinking, let me just take. Let me always take. Let me always bring. If it's gonna keep coming in, let's not stop. If someone is, if I love the example of like a Brinks truck, right? If a Brinks truck on the side of the road and it opens up and the money flies out, people ain't trying to stop that Brinks truck. They're gonna let that truck keep riding and keep the money keep coming out because they can keep taking, right? So it's like you have to realize that that's what people are gonna do, because now their expectations for themselves is that people are always going to hand stuff to me. People are always going to do that. And when it happens to us, we have to be in a situation where we can like say, hey, why do you think that? And help them learn from it. And then, so it's just, I love opportunists because I love having the conversation with them, because my goal is always to turn an opportunist to someone that can help me serve too.
And I'm gonna say this though, Shad. I think for me, I always want to make somebody the driver of the Brinks truck. And it's like I didn't know you was collecting the money from my Brinks truck that was falling out. So you just getting a couple bills. You're not seeing what's even in the inside of the Brinks truck. You get what I'm saying? But the couple bills is getting them day to day, bro, unfortunately. And they don't even see the driver's seat in their life, bro. They don't even want to see the process it took to get the money into the Brinks truck and the relationship that you got to build to go into the bank, to take your time, to come out securely, drive the Brinks truck safely, put your seatbelt on. Nah, they just want to keep collecting the little droplings that fall out. And it's like, this is not going to be enough to sustain you.
I would agree with Rashad. It's definitely situational. I think you have to have the awareness to know which situation you're in. The person that's, like Rashad said, an opportunist, or the person that's actually seeking help. And for the person that's seeking help, I think it's about being of service to that person. The Bible talks about that, being of service to others and helping that person find that ambition, find that drive, seeing that light in themselves, so they can have that ambition and set that expectations for themselves. But also with the opportunists, I think that, and sometimes we go in with trying to be of service to people and have these high expectations. We also have to understand that expectations are fluid; they can change in different situations. Like, for example, a team, a football, basketball team, they have these expectations beginning of the season. Oh yeah, I see us practicing, we gonna win this championship, boy. I see you. They get to the first couple weeks of the season and things ain't looking too hot. They ain't that good, so they have to temper expectations. Same thing with in relationships, and when you're dealing with people like that and opportunities, you have to temper those expectations. You can go in thinking you can be of service and help them, and they just keep draining you and draining you. Like Rashad said, he has our conversations with them. You got to temper them expectations of how you're going to deal with that person in that relationship.
I was just gonna say, like, you got enough water is about to be my new slogan. You got enough water is a bar. Like, wow. I wish we could get out of this mindset of what can somebody do for me and really get into the mindset again. I think the theme that we're on right now is how can we serve others? And I just speak to something that is tough for me is being able to consistently serve, like I alluded to earlier, being able to consistently serve without necessarily getting anything in return. Because I don't know if it's just kind of how I was raised, and not to say that anything was wrong with it, but like when there was a reward involved, I would be more willing to do whatever the task was. But nowadays I'm kind of more prone to think of it in terms of like, why expect a reward for something that I should be doing anyway? Like, why should there be a reward for doing the right thing? And again, that's for adults. It's like we're old enough to kind of not be motivated by, you know, temporal things, you know what I'm saying? Fleeting things that kind of would just get us by in the moment. Like, I think our focus needs to be on something a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more long term, or I mean, let's just do it because it's the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Without really any expectation of anything in return. Like for me, it's just one of those things that if I keep going out of my way for you and keep just kind of extending myself and keep serving and serving, and it's like there's no acknowledgement. Like I want to be at a point where that is okay. That I don't feel a way about that. That I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of necessarily, because at the end of the day, I am still helping. Like I am still in a role where I'm serving somebody. So maybe another aspect um, of this discussion on expectations is to just be okay with serving others and helping others, and that's it. Just seeing them happy and fulfilled, and not really worrying about whether you're being taken advantage of or they're getting over or whatever the case may be. Now we can't live without water. So you've taken all the water is another thing. Now we're getting into science a little bit. Like I need a little bit of water too myself. I think the human body can only make it 3 days without. So please share a little bit of the water that I'm giving you. Maybe give that back to your boy, and we can both prosper. But yeah, I just think maybe a shift in the mindset of I'm giving too much to somebody and not getting anything in return could be helpful as well. And then again, just kind of look to the Lord for all your needs to be met anyway. So not really expecting somebody is like one thing. Oh gosh, okay. So one thing that I try to do right is like stuff around the house, just doing things around the house without expecting any reciprocation. So like, for example, like just rubbing my wife's feet, usually. So I've used both tactics. If I want a foot rub, like maybe I'll start by rubbing her feet and then just hope that like maybe but it's tough because she's just like, she's a giver. So like, but I'll give you a hand rub or I give you a foot rub, and then it's like, no, I'm cool. Like, I'm good. Because I think that is just a small thing that can go a long way in terms of just resetting your mindset around expectations. Like, I do something for you, you do something for me. Like, no, I want to do something for you because I love you. There doesn't need to be anything added to that. Because I care about you, I'm gonna help you out, whether it's financially, whether you're moving, I'm gonna help you, and not really expect you to return the favor, because that's not what this friendship is about. Like, I love you, I'm gonna go out of my way for you, and that should be enough. So yeah, maybe just to like a reset around how we think about expectations. And can I just say this before we go on? Like, I didn't expect this to be such a broad topic, but we're getting a lot out of this. I thought we had something else on the docket too. Now I'm not trying to push us there. Please don't misunderstand me, but like, this is a way broader topic than I thought going into it, for real.
Man, that's what's so amazing, because like me and Shy was so aligned on this topic, bro, and in a different way. And the way you and Spence are talking and then playing off these conversations is just amazing. Like, seeing this in real time is just so powerful. I just love the way that the spirit is working right now. It's just amazing to see, and just so amazing because 5 minutes before we started, y'all like, "Oh, what is this? What is this about? What's it about? What we gonna talk about?" So it's just interesting. Go ahead, Shy. My fault. And I wanted to keep going with what JG said, but go ahead real quick.
Yeah, I want to add to, well, I think JG, what you said about, in a sense, the standards, right, of serving and not expecting something back. I'm gonna challenge that in a couple of ways, because I want to say I do agree with the concept, but I've seen situations where I'm like, I don't agree with those situations. And for example, I've known someone who works hard for their money. Money is something we talk about a lot on the podcast. Money is something that is a focus in life. You need money. And when you work hard for your money, you want to have your money. I think we can all agree with that. But if someone is asking you for your money every single year and they give you excuse and you keep giving it to them, and now you're out, but you're giving them money because they're irresponsible with their money, and you keep doing it over and over, you're serving but not expecting nothing back. That's where I'm like, no, I'm not okay with that, because you're getting taken advantage of on the finance. And finances is, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, finances impacts everybody. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons for divorces is finances. But if you have someone, and it's a family member too, and so you're thinking like you're always helping, but you're just like, man, why are they not doing what they need to do with their money? And it's because we keep giving it to them, and we want to serve, but I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't keep giving the money, because they're opportunists. And I think there's some situations where I agree where we shouldn't always be expecting something back, but I think those are situations where you can't just keep doing that and you're suffering from it, right? I think there's a difference when you're serving and you're getting fulfillment, and then there's a times where you're serving and you're suffering. And if you're ever in a situation where you're serving and in a result you're suffering and not being fulfilled, that's a situation where I think the standard changes a little bit. We can't really serve.
I think JG gonna say what I was gonna say. Go ahead, JG.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to think now because I there was something that you said that triggered a thought, and I can't. I lost it. If you
Because
got it,
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle right now.
Go ahead. Okay.
All right. So like, I was thinking the same thing when he was talking, and I was like, I just read the Bible last night, and I'm like, this is the flesh talking, bro. When it comes to those circumstances, because we're only suffering in the flesh, literally, physically, and that is something that bothers me a lot, for sure, when I don't see reciprocation all the time. And I would say I'm struggling with my flesh more than serving. I'm a great person that gives and serves. I'm not saying that, but I do struggle when it comes to specific populations that are taking advantage of the situation. But I do got to keep growing my relationship with God, because if I keep focusing on the flesh, I'm missing the mission. And how do I know that this is not blessing them in a way that's not changing their life? I'm only seeing certain parts. I'm only suffering a little bit. Okay? It's a way that I'm getting it back every year, number one. I can recover from it. Number two, is it impacting my family? Is when it crosses the boundary for me. And that's why I do agree to Shai's point of view, and I agree with Jerron's perspective, because it's like I am split, but then I would have to say that I have a double mind at that time. Either I'm gonna have faith and serve, or I'm gonna have a double mind and say when it start impacting me, bro, I gotta address it. But from my perspective is we don't rule set with people in the beginning. That means it's on us. From my perspective, if I told you what it was from the beginning, I would never be impacted in this way because we knew what it was from the very beginning. And I think that's what happens in relationships. The strongest person in the family is always the strongest person in the family. They always complaining though. When they get to the crunch time and they've done it for X amount of years, guess what's gonna happen? Their flesh gonna eat them alive unless they've been given the right way the whole time. Now they can say that they give and they serve and they help the whole time. You the strongest one. But the expectation, like we talked about from the beginning of this podcast episode, bro, from the rest of the family members that were just taking the water, so to speak, they're just like, this is who they are. I don't need to do anything. But there might be one opportunist in that family that's taking advantage, and that's when your flesh and your spiritual realm are going to be tested at that time. And I think that is what Jerron's point was, is like, we got to talk about this because it's a test. How are we treating these relationships when we're serving? You know what I mean? Are we rule setting in the beginning so that it's an understanding of what's happening? Because if I give $10 to the guy on the corner and he go get a beer and he's there every day and he get $50 out of me in a year, is he an opportunist or is it a blessing for him? I don't know. And so who am I to dictate the lack of reciprocation? And that's kind of where we've been talking about this whole time. And that's where I'm stuck in the middle, fellas. I'm not going to lie. And I would have to literally say that I have a double mind when it comes to this. Because I'll give an example of the retreat. I felt like I was serving and I was fulfilled. Nobody paid for anything. And bro, I'm not going to lie, it's probably one of the best moments of 2024. You know what I'm saying? My wedding was 2023. The retreat this year was amazing. And going back to Aruba. Like those are two of my highest points in my life through this year. But I would have to say there were certain parts when I was given a lot and my flesh was tearing me down, fellas. And when you think about when you serving at the highest level on how you feel, and then when you serve and there's no reciprocation on how you feel, it's nothing but the devil at the end of the day, because it's like you got me mad, frustrated, and I'm cutting this person off a lot of the times. That's for me. And so that's why I'm like, I'm so in the middle. That's all I had to say. Because I understand both perspectives.
I see what you're saying. And Spence, I'm gonna let you go real quick, but I think that's where boundaries come in. And I think there's, physical, emotional, and spiritual boundaries that you have in those situations. Because in that financial situation, if you're giving to someone that isn't using it in need, this person got it, but they'd rather to squander their money themselves because they know you're going to give it to them, that's not helping them. And so if you don't have any boundaries, and that takes away from how you can serve more for God, because you're giving to someone that isn't benefiting, well, they're benefiting from it, but it's not helping in the kingdom. And sometimes you don't know if it is, and sometimes you don't know if it's not, because you just, like you said, the situation of the homeless person, you don't know what it's doing. But in a situation where you know it's doing, that's when that person is an opportunist, because you know what's happening with that person. Like you know what's being done with how you're serving and the time you're being served. So I think there's boundaries to that. And that kind of goes to what JG, what you said about, like, sometimes you just serve friends and you don't expect nothing back. But I think you surround yourself with people that are going to serve you regardless whether you expect it back or not. I know for a fact that you all are going to serve me. That's why you're my friends. That's why you're my association. I'm not going to associate with people that I know is never going to serve me. Now, I still may help out and serve those people, but that's not people I'm spending all of my time with and serving and giving all of my energy and time to, because you don't have the same values as me. You don't have the same drive or thought or perspective, and not necessarily the same, we think alike, but just we're all focused on bettering ourselves and getting closer with God. And when you associate with people like that, of course you're not gonna have no problems serving and not expecting nothing back, because they're gonna do the same thing for you. Rel, you drew the whole retreat for us and didn't expect nothing back from us. So when I serve you and you don't do anything back for me, I am completely okay with that. spent all the times you served me in high school and after we graduated high school and in college, and you didn't expect nothing back. The times where you drove up here and you didn't ask for gas money, you didn't ask for anything, or when I had to come up there, like, or when I came to help you move, I didn't ask you for any money. I drove 3 hours up there to help you. I didn't expect nothing back. It's because we serve each other, because that's why that we're an association, and we choose to have the association. We have boundaries from people. We don't do that. This goes back to that 3 hour, 3 day, and 3 minute people. Like, you're still going to serve everybody, but your association is going to be people that have the same standards as you. That's why they're your association. So that's kind of, so JG, I get what you mean when, like, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. Like, we're still going to serve regardless of this on the back, but the people we associate with at the highest levels are going to serve us back regardless.
Wow, I love this conversation, bro. This is some good stuff.
I just have a quick point. I think it just you have to be aware of the situation that you in. To speak to the specific example that Rashad gave, I think it's also could be a situation that God is putting you in to teach someone else. Specifically with the finances, you keep giving this person money. God teaches us to be steward of our finances. God could be putting you in that situation to be teaching someone and shedding the light and being of service and teaching that person to be a steward of the money that you're giving them. So that's all I want to highlight. It's just being aware and then teaching people in those situations that you're presenting.
Hold on, Spence. Hold on. I can't let you off the hook that fast, bro. So you teaching the person, right? You teaching the person, Spence. All right, you teaching them how you budgeting, how you stewarding your money. They take advantage of it in some way. From your perspective, how should those
I
things
would
be
say
handled?
go back to being aware. I mean, if it's draining you, where it's affecting you, your family, and what you have going on, that's where that line, that boundary has to be drawn. From my perspective, like you can't keep pouring and pouring and pouring, and then you look at your cup and it's empty. So I think that it's just a fine line, and I think the Bible also talks about us being aware of people and situations. So I think it's just that having that fine line of knowing if I'm doing too much, where I'm draining myself, and then it's expecting me, my family, and others that are around me.
That's real, bro. Because a lot of the times we end up just complaining about it. And if it's spilling over in them conversations and they turn into negative, I think that's when we gotta know my cup getting a little low. I gotta refill. My cup getting a little too low right now. I gotta get some water.
And all last point. Also, you can go to God in prayer to see how you need to react in those situations. Whether you need to remove yourself or you need to just like I said before, temper your expectations. Expectations are fluid; they can change. So that's also another. God to give you the answer.
Yes, sir. Amen, bro. All right, JG, what's up, man? Because I know you about to tear us down. Tear us
Nah,
down.
nah. I'm just I I just think that probably the most helpful thing that we can do is allow our relationship with God to lead our relationships with other people and not the other way around, right? So I think that, depending on when you know accept Jesus into your heart as your Lord and Savior, you probably spend more time in relationships with people, and so that is dictating how we respond in these certain situations and how we feel in these certain situations. But one thing that we should all know by now is that feelings can be misleading. How you feel might not necessarily reflect the truth of your situation. Okay, so we can't really move and react based on how we feel. And so, one thing that I was just kind of quickly trying to wrap my mind around was in any real relationship that has meaning, any kind of deep, loving relationship that we have with someone, to a certain degree, we should be able to like influence them, right? Like it's not for our own personal gain, but like we should be able to have some sort of positive influence on them. And the way that we do that is we have that conversation ahead of time. To Rashad's point, we set those boundaries, but it needs to be, I think it was either Rashad or Beezy that said it, you need to like kind of make your feelings known up front so that there is no room for kind of misinterpretation. For example, if you find yourself in a situation where you're supporting somebody financially every month, if you're okay with that, then really no discussion needs to be had, I guess. If that's not something that's affecting you in a negative way, then it is what it is, right? However, if that is something that could affect you negatively, even just one time, that conversation needs to be had up front. It's like, okay, and I can help you out this time, and just kind of leave it at that. And if it comes up again, you could just be like, hey, I know I helped you out last month, but this isn't something that I can have be a regular thing. What did Kevin Hart say? The way my bank account is set up, and I can't really, this isn't really sustainable going forward. And so I think, yeah, setting those boundaries, making our feelings known ahead of time, and not assuming that they'll know how we feel without us saying something. I think we kind of touched on that in the previous episode as well. It's like nobody knows your thought. Nobody can read. We don't. I don't know no mind readers. I'm not friends with no mind readers in my life. Thank goodness. So I'm not. I can't expect somebody to know what I'm thinking or how I'm feeling, even my wife in certain situations, because it varies. It's not like a static response. You kind of need to be able to speak up and have your feelings known. And like one thing that like so if we're created in God's image, if we are in a real relationship with God, we can influence his decisions as well. We can influence God as well. This is something I never considered. Think about the story of Abraham when he and Lot were trying to decide where they were going to live, and they go in separate directions, right? Lot goes over here where they wilding. Abraham's like, I'll take the rest. We chilling over here. God is like, I'm destroying Sodom. I'm getting all of them out of there. One interesting part of that story is Abraham said, hold on, Lord, if I can find 10 righteous men, will you hold off on your judgment? What mattered to Abraham mattered to God because of the nature of their relationship. When Abraham made his feelings known, in his conversation with God, God said, okay, like I will, because we're talking about like deep, intimate relationship with the Lord. And so Abraham was able to talk him out of it if he could find 10 righteous people. And so again, this is kind of like new ground for me, so bear with me, but like I guess the Bible is pretty clear on that, is that in a real relationship with God, we can influence him because he cares about us. And when our hearts and thoughts and prayers are in alignment with his will, these are the things that can lead us to kind of influence God. In Isaiah, he says, come now, let us reason together. We talking about the God of the universe. Like, come, let us reason together. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So maybe like this is something that we need to kind of practice in quiet time with God and kind of, again, seek out his perspective on these things, and then just turn and apply that to our daily lives. Because again, the Bible also says you have not because you ask not. And so we're encouraged to bring our requests before God in prayer. Why then would we not make our feelings and requests known to others that are important to us and that we have a real relationship with in our social lives, with our family members, with somebody we're meeting for the first time? You need to set a boundary off rip because you don't know how the relationship is going to develop. These boundaries are set just through conversation, and as you continue to get to know one another and develop a real relationship, things go from there. But again, I think all of that is just to say, I think it's just not using, that's not the correct word, modeling our relationships with others off of our relationship with God. And the closer we are with God, the more we are able to be more open to take things and request before him in prayer, to express ourselves in ways that we might not have previously done, as we reach a deeper level of relationship with him and a deeper understanding of his word and kind of how he communicates to those in the word that he has real relationship with them. And it kind of goes back to your word of the year, obedience, BZ, because that's honored. And I had this conversation, I had the same or similar conversation with somebody last week, where it's God knows your heart and God knows why you're doing the things that you're doing. That you can't hide anything from God. You can't hide your motives. You can't hide your motivations. You can't hide your intentions from God. You may be able to mislead people that you're interacting with, but God sees straight through to your heart. I think that when you are intentionally setting things aside to seek out God, he will honor that. When you are inserting or injecting Jesus into a situation that previously did not have Jesus, or you did not seek Jesus out, that is not unnoticed. God will honor that, and God will respond to you drawing closer to him in those moments rather than trying to hide and do whatever it is that you were previously doing, right? And so I just think that those types of things are rewarded if our intentions are in the right place. You know, the word says in Matthew, don't let your right hand know what your or don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And so that speaks to your intention. Like, what is your motivation for doing the things that you do? Are your motivations pure, or are they selfish? Are you out for your own personal gain, or are you out for something that would only benefit you, or is this a genuine act um, that you're doing? And so yeah, all of this is important, man. And I think that the more that we come to a relationship with God and understand his character through study of his word, that's going to really dictate our relationships with other people so that nothing will be lost in translation. Like, everybody's going to know where you stand.
Want to go a little bit deeper into that before we get off the pod tonight, because it kind of aligns with what all of us said. If we have that influence and that kind of connection with God like Abraham had, Jerron, like I want to know what you just said, because to Rashad's point, pretty much God is going to allow these people to come into your life that will gravitate towards you when you're living righteous. In the word, he pretty much said, God, well, if I could find 40 righteous people, can you do X, Y, and Z? If I could find 30 righteous people, and God trusted him to find those righteous people, bro. And I think that's what happens when we're aligned and we're drawing closer to him, is that righteous people will start gravitating towards us, or we can start influencing other people to that extent, just like we can with God. And that's why I think it's all reciprocated right there. It just tied in the whole conversation that we just had. And I think whether you're spreading that light and the word to others, whether that's motivation, inspiration, serving them, and it's being reciprocated, those are the people that you need in your life, regardless. Because the people that are not righteous, God will take care of them in his own way, just like he did with Lot. I mean, it just is there. It's right there in the word. So I think that's something to really think about. And I think this year, everybody, I think we just want everybody to highlight what your expectations not only for yourself are, but what you want it to be for other people in your life. And can you demonstrate a type of communication that you have not demonstrated in the past to let people know what your boundaries are going to be with them, so that you can either help them or inspire them to be better, to prosper in life, draw closer to God, succeed in life, maybe influence people to let them know that you don't have to just live for tomorrow. You could live your life the way that you should and the way that God wants us all to live. And that involves joy, peace, and love. And so I think that's kind of what we wanted to highlight today. And I think this was a great conversation. It's just so amazing to hear all these conversations and topics spill off expectations.
Give yourself grace when you're setting these expectations. You don't have to, you know, if you don't reach a certain goal, you don't, it's not a failure. It's a lesson. But also give yourself grace when you may not meet those expectations or that goals. Give yourself grace because you did make some type of progress. And it may be something you can't control, may not be something you can control. But give yourself grace when you have these lofty standards for yourself. Celebrate the small wins. If you're so focused on the next goal, you forget to reflect and look back on far you have come and give yourself grace for that as well. So that would be my encouragement for the week.
Appreciate you, Spence. I love what you said about the progress, bro. A lot of times, you guys, I know y'all listening to us, like when you not making progress or you don't see a reward, it's okay. Just keep going. Take a break when you need it, rest when you can. But like Spence said, just give yourself grace.
Yeah, so some encouragement for the week before I share the book recommendations. It's kind of all tied together. But I encourage you all to write a letter to yourself for this year. Write a letter for 2025, what you're expecting to be. So what goals you have, and what your future self's gonna be proud of when you actually open that letter up and read it. And if you want to celebrate yourself and already give yourself an accomplishment, put some money in there too, and hide it in the envelope. And when you open it up, for your hard work and for your accomplishments. So definitely make sure you take time, reflect on how 2024 went, and go and write yourself a letter for how 2025 is going to be. And then from stuff we were talking about today, for encouragement for stuff we were talking about, is find ways to work on yourself in a lot of those avenues that we discussed. And so, before we talk about like books for expectations, I mean, there's a book we talked about it called Boundaries, right? So, if you want to learn how to understand the proper way of setting boundaries in all aspects of your life, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend would be a great book for that. And then when it comes to expectations, if you feel like you don't have expectations and you don't have that dream and you don't really understand that, then a book for that would be The Dream Giver, and this is by Bruce Wilkinson, and it's about the guy and the story of Ordinary. He lives in the land of familiar, and he doesn't really understand what having a big dream is about. He doesn't have expectations for himself, so he goes out on a journey and just learns biblical principles of how to be successful or how to have and accomplish those dreams. And sometimes that's what you just need to make sure you understand what it looks like and that you're not ordinary, you're not in the land of familiar, you're someone that's extraordinary. So definitely that. And then as well as probably one of my favorite books is The Magic of Thinking Big. Sometimes we're always limiting ourselves and limiting our expectations, but this says the magic of thinking big, acquire the secrets of success, achieve everything you've always wanted. Sometimes you don't feel like you're going to achieve what you need to achieve. So you have to learn how to understand and change that thought process and those expectations. So definitely say The Dream Giver. It definitely say the magic of thinking big, but if boundaries is something you struggle with, definitely the book Boundaries is spot on for that.
Yeah, just some encouragement for the week. I think I like what Spence said about grace. Just give yourself some grace. Like sometimes it's possible to set the bar too high, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But as far as trying to accomplish your goals and improve as a person and maybe improve your overall situation, I would say don't be too hard on yourself and maybe adjust your expectation to give yourself that grace that you need to accomplish that. You may not accomplish all of your goals in 2025. That doesn't mean that you're not going to accomplish them at all. So, for sure, I would say just kind of, hold up, man. See, because now this ties into what I was looking at earlier. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Okay, therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, this is verse 10. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. So again, God always comes through on his promises. Let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Our timing, different from God's timing. So our at just the right time may not be at his just the right time. But we shouldn't lose heart, and we should definitely not give up on the things that we're doing and pursuing as long as they're in alignment with his will, as long as they're good. So,
All right, we appreciate everybody for tuning in this week to episode 6 for expectations. Tune in and continue to follow this journey with us. Us four are all going on individual journeys, and we just want to share perspective with you guys and stimulate you guys to wholesome thinking. Hopefully, this podcast helps you guys think about different things that you may be experiencing. But today, we wanted to highlight expectations, especially being in January and the beginning of the year, to help you guys guide you through the year. So again, please spread out the word and spread this podcast out to as many people that comes to your mind. And we just want to get out there and help as many people as we can. So appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Wholesome Thinking, and we hope you guys have a great weekend.